Okay, so for the next section of the video, we're going looking for some 5-panel doors, whatever we can find, as long as it's an antique looking door. I have searched high and low all over the state. I found a brand new special order door that a builder didn't use. Turns out it was 32 inches. We needed to stay at about 30 inches for originality of the house. All the other doors are 30-inch doors. I don't want it to look wrong or just out of place. We also have to factor in the height that's available above the door. So let's go shopping. So we got a bit north of us at a Habitat for Humanity restore, and I found door number 1. It's missing a knob, but it is the right width, and it has, I think, the correct hinges on the door. So we'll have to see about retrofitting some hinges. And there's antique stores by us, and I also got a bonus door number 2. This one looks like it's in a little better condition, and it came with some hardware for the door casing that we have to make. So this one had like a little crack up here, minor things, but a little bit different design than what we were looking for, but authentic old doors. And that's the main thing, is that it's not going to be too noticeable even if the pattern's not the same. I'm happy with it. $20 each. So since we were able to find our doors yesterday, for the other side, like I said, we ended up getting 2. This door, for unknown reasons, I couldn't figure out years ago why this trim was different than this trim. Still don't know exactly why, but they did these filler strips, and it had something to do with when they worked on the other side because the woodworking matches. They took what was the original trim and had it nailed here around the edges. This door was never shimmed properly. There was a gap here, so lots of cold air going through there, and basically the header was incomplete with no shims. So we've got these cedar shakes and regular building shims, but these cedar shakes work really good because they're much wider on one end for filling these big gaps like this, so you're not needing, 3 or 4 shims. So this is getting all secure for whatever reason. They thought it was a good idea to nail it every 2 inches all the way up, and it was only from the shiplap here on the upper half of the door and above the top. So you can see the gap, filling that in. And if you come over here on this side, husband finished all the wiring today. So where the outlet, the porcelain fitting is now a junction box, and everything is run separately to its own switch and plug. So those fixtures will go up. The porcelains will go back up temporarily. Today I've gone through and I made a nice straight edge with my cutting blade to make sure that the plaster underneath doesn't crack or continue. And then their filler piece here, I'll have to take that off if we're going to do, let's see, there's one more piece, and then the quarter round. I wasn't quite sure how far we were going to go with the door, if we were going to go with a 20, a 30, 32, 34. The door on the other side is 30, and we were able to find a 30 and a 31.5 at the store. So now I am just pulling off their 2x4 that they put in. So save yourself some work on your drywall removal if you got a bunch of nails, because this will just get used as scrap someplace else. But now I can kind of complete this opening because husband is the carpenter and I'm good at demo. So he's working on his shims on that side, and then I can take this one off here and on the bottom so we can stop stepping over that also. So what I was showing right there is he was getting ready to hang a piece of drywall from this white shiplap board to the top. And I happened to glance over and I thought, boy, that looks like an awfully big gap. And this is less than a drywall sheet wide on its side. It was missing a shiplap piece over on the side. They just ran out. So we just created our own. And he cut the overlap edge. My words are lost right now. And he nailed it back up on the top so we would have that same gap. Because like here, the drywall is just sitting right on that edge. This piece was a little tricky, but once it was on, getting it behind the shiplap was the tricky part, because that had to go in first and then get this all fitted in real nice. It's gonna brighten it up so much more as soon as this piece went on, instead of the light from the work light just being absorbed by the craft paper on the insulation. It just is reflecting the light back. So he just ran down to cut another piece of drywall. I'm basically just down to assistant work today. But he's got this all shimmed, and now the door is in proper. We're assuming all of the shiplap up here was just kind of left over from cladding the outside of the house. But they were running short, so this piece is a little short. And the drywall is going to fill some of this in. I don't know if he'll want to put another board in there like he did down at the other end. But we'll have to do a filler piece here and here when he puts this casing on, because this trim is 3.5 inches this way. And I think he said everything up on top was measuring about 5. So it's just like a 1/4 inch trim piece on its side, about a 4.5 inch board, and then another 1 inch up on top. So that'll all go in through here. My cleanup job today was getting that piece off, cutting this over another 2 inches to be able to take those 2x4s off. And I'm just sweeping and helping carry drywall up a piece at a time, but it's coming along slowly. Well, I wanted to show you, we had a snow day, and then just a couple more to hang. We got the temporary lights up, and I can start doing mudding and sanding. This is the closet on one end, and he picked up supplies for the door casing over here, and this is the closet on the other end. So a fortunate thing, we've lived at our farm for about 12 years now, and this is the 3rd house that's been on the property. 2 previous houses have been tore down, and they stored all the old doors with the hinges intact in the rafters of an old corn crib. We call it the rabbit shed because I used to keep rabbits, but look at this. Isn't that beautiful? So maybe in the summertime we'll be able to clean these out. People can use them for wedding doors. These are a 2-panel style door with a very thin like plywood piece in the center. So a lot of them are warped or delaminating. Like this one is busted right up, but it has beautiful hardware on it. And I looked just on eBay for hinges that match, and I could not find an exact match. Mainly what I'm looking for is that spacing. And these can be patinaed with Japanning treatment. They call it bronzing, coppering, copper gilding, and Japanning, and that gives it that black look. So I'm going to go ahead and be able to use these because they have the proper pins in them and the proper spacing for the hinges that are already on the door. So we just got to work, and my replacement hinges fit. And they move freely, so that's pretty great. I stripped the door yesterday, and if you're curious how I did that, watch the video that I did about a year ago. This door was painted, and I wanted it to bear wood because every other door up here was unpainted. Like I said, I don't know what happened with that door, why the trim was replaced, but everything was replaced with paint. So I stripped it. You can see where it's a little darker in some spots. The stripper that I used worked effectively for most of the door, and then in some areas it was kind of wanting to redistribute that, so I'll hit that a little bit with a light buffing sanding and then recoat it like I did with the other doors with the Varathane gel stain. It kind of goes on like paint when you brush it on, and it will simulate that wood grain. So now he is going to start working on more of the casing today, and I've been working on more mudding. So if you're like me and you have some to no experience in drywalling, a closet's a great place to get some practice because it's a closet. A lot of this is going to be covered by shelving and clothing, but this is the second day of drywall mudding. And what I'm doing is I'm going over where I previously drywalled, and we're filling in little pock marks like that. Some people call it pucky or pocky. And I'm not going to teach you how to do this. I've shown some repair work in the past when we did some work in the kitchen earlier this winter, so you can refer back to there. But this is just going through and knocking down high spots like this so that your new layer of mud goes over smoothly. And because this is the first layer, you know, you want to do it gentle so you don't gouge your paper, because what we're doing is we're building up a layer. So this is like a 6-inch knife. I'm going to be moving up to a 9-inch knife. But this is just helping so that you don't have to sand between all your layers. You're just knocking off those high spots. So husband is making great progress while I am mudding. Look at this. We have a door now. It's not complete yet. We have to do what's called the stop. So there's a board that goes about halfway in between here all the way around for the door to rest on when it's closed. And I have to get him his latch that is going to go here. So in real-time example, this is the board he's going to do next. And the old latch. So I gotta find some more screws and that latch. So I started in and remembered I wanted to show you about this staining the door. I'm using that Varathane gel stain. Min-Max makes one, probably a lot of other companies too. Our big box stores sell one or the other basically. Sometimes they sell both. It just kind of depends on the store you're at. I am using Ipswich Pine. This bare wood is making it look very farmhouse, and when I add this Ipswich Pine over it, it gives it kind of that reddish look without going so deep as mahogany. I used mahogany on some new wood downstairs, and it was way too dark. So I actually have to go over that with this just to see if I can change the color a little bit, because it goes on kind of like paint. And the thing that I like about this is that your brush leaves brush strokes that make it look like wood grain, which really help out with that kind of a faux finish to it to make it look as old as the rest of the doors. You can also use it as a touch-up coat over old doors if you have damage, just to kind of even them out. And I did that because, like I said before, this house did used to be a rental property, and laundry baskets and kids and just, you know, a lot of years of abuse, it really benefited from that. So basically here, I'm trying to get ahead of the husband because unfortunately the wood trim in this room was already painted before we owned the house, and the casing needed to get stained. So I just finished that and figured I better do the door too, so that his new wood that he's going to put on tomorrow won't have the risk of getting any of this stain on it, and then I won't be in his way also. So this will dry overnight, and then whenever we're ready, we'll go ahead and give it a clear coat. So you see I'm doing long, even strokes to kind of make sure that you don't have any choppiness to it, because that is not going to mock or imitate a wood grain. And then when I get to the edge, I just make sure that I give it a long, even stroke. When you have bare wood, you can put this on with a rag like you do traditional stain. Not all of this went down to the bare wood, and I knew that, and that's okay. I also went through my thresholds earlier today and got off some of the old stain from there. And just from water, I could see the natural color in the wood floor in the closets. So I'm going to basically not have to strip those at all. I thought it would be years and years of dirt. I may give them a quick washing, but I think just clear alone is going to be enough for them to match the rest of the floor, because I did not apply stain to my floors, only clear. Ooh. Watch out for tools on the knees. I just put my knee right into a screwdriver. I don't normally try to like compound my projects for a day, but I knew we were going to be overlapping yesterday, and I just don't want to get the dark gel stain where there's going to be white paint on the casing. can see, when the door is shut, this casing on the outside, the new trim is going to butt right up against that, and the face of my other trim is white. That's why I wanted to do this. Be careful to not work so fast that you go splattering. I have done that. On occasion, you get in a hurry. And it's late. I'm ready to be done for the day. And then I'll just work around the hinges carefully, because I don't want to like coat them, but it's going to be fine. So here's what it looks like better up close. And here's what the finished door will look like. That's why I was saying about the white trim around the edges. So on the way tomorrow, we have to pick up side trim here for the sides and up on top, and all the fancy trim to copy this. They do sell these ready-made. However, they're about $30 a piece, and all this is a common board. This is another board that is just on its edge. You can also use a trim piece, and they sell some of this trim already pre-done, and then you just miter the corners. So tomorrow's going to be another big day. That's the end of today. The closet here behind me got another coat of mud, and the other one did also. So I did lots of knockdowns, taking down high spots. Watch other people's drywall videos. There are professionals out there that can teach you a lot better than what I have. So husband found in another barn here a bunch of old wood that came out of the house that was tore down here with the right profile, right width. So I'm going to take these to work with me today, because the same thing, that old lacquer starts crackling, so I have to strip that off. These pieces are the ones that I was talking about will get painted. So I'm going to strip them and get them painted so that he can install them on another day. So I'll save you a little bit of time about going back and looking for the stripping video on the door, and put a card in up here above, and possibly a link down in the description. But this is what I use. It is Zepp floor stripper, not floor cleaner, and I put this on the boards full strength. I looked through many different threads of things for years trying to figure out how to best strip my hardwood floors in the house. Years ago, before I started doing that, and it worked perfectly just to soften that lacquer finish. It will remove stain also, depending on how long you sit. So in comparison to the door that you saw finished upstairs the other day, this is the door that I did not finish. You know, it was one of those things, it's like, we weren't real sure what size door we wanted to get. You don't want to wait or sleep on something and then have it be sold. So we just bought them both. Use the smaller one of the two, and we'll hang on to this one. We're gonna need this in the future for another project. So, like I said, without going into a lot of detail about stripping the door, you can see the full step-by-steps. I just pour the floor stripper on full strength, or you can dip a brush in, and then I just spread it around and let it set. As I go to the next section or the next board, it is softening. So then I go back over each board. It's real sticky because I'm putting it on full strength, and I loosen it with a scrub brush. This is an old vegetable scrubbing brush that I have, and I'm doing this outside to not spread or create any splatter, because it happens. You know, you start splattering and it's gonna go flying. You don't want this on your white walls. That room is finished, and I'm not trying to strip this down, you know, like paint wise. It is a bit strong smelling, so keep that in mind. Wear gloves, wear a mask if, you know, odors are bothering you, anything like that. It says using a well-ventilated area. Obviously, I'm in the garage in February, so it's cold, but I've got ventilation, and it is above freezing today, so I'm not worried about this. Use warm water. It will help. It does kind of speed up the process. The longer you let it set, the more results you'll get. This has a little bit of paint and bare wood on the edges. I'm going to be painting them anyway. The main thing is I want that crackly finish off, because when you paint over that, you can see it. Even my gel stain, I had some spots where it kind of left residue behind, and I could have kept going, but it seemed to just be spreading. And when I added the gel stain, it darkened over those areas. That's why I'm doing this, because you get, you know, like these raised sections, and it just doesn't finish well to just paint over it. So now I'm gonna just take a wet rag, and I'm gonna wipe these all clean You can use a second step of a rinse water as much as you want. I want these to get dry and in the house later, so I'm just going to clean these up and bring them in. So all day today has been finishing sanding and cleaning up. My boards have been in the house drying. I was able to put a layer of primer on them, and just to avoid any bleed through possibilities from stripping it down, those old tannins want to rise up and turn like the surface brown or orange. I used Kills paint and primer in one. However, I will tell you it does dry gray. Here is a example of that. This is Bare White Premium, and this is the Kills paint and primer in one. I had painted these a color that was supposed to be a beige, and it had a purple tone, and I just needed to get it covered. So it didn't matter that it was a little bit on the gray side with the cream colored walls. But with this trim, I wanted to make sure that it's pure white, because everything else upstairs is pure white, and all of the baseboards, all the trim have already been painted. So this is the Bare pure white straight from the bucket. So today's work is door trim, and we've started it on this. These are the pieces that I painted yesterday. He's outside cutting a piece right now that's going to go up here on the top. He is very good at trim, and I am not as good in trim as him. He's very precise with his cuts. This is my finished drywall with a coat of PVA drywall primer. You really want to do this because it helps seal in the drywall mud and the surface of the drywall. And then I'm just doing, originally I was thinking green paint to match the rooms, but in a closet, especially without a window, it can be very dark and absorb the light from the light bulbs. The other closets are all white, so I decided I better stick with white. It's against my inspiration photo that I shown, but it makes sense, especially in a small space with a low slanted ceiling like this. He doesn't really want to do shelving and racks. I'd like to at least have a clothing rack here. However, that would be taking up a good amount of space. This is 5 feet where a large dresser could be, or a tower type unit, so I'm not real sure about that. You know, a partial shelving here, putting one here makes your head run into the slant. They did that in the other closets on the other side, but they also have a flat space that comes out a little bit more, that we're not having that here. So the angles, it all works out the same. But I think it'd be better to maybe let the future homeowners decide on a closet system. So on this side, you can see better where I've begun painting. So this was a bunch of old white paint that I had used, and I only had enough primer to do only the drywall, and it's made for drywall, not for shiplap. So 100-year-old shiplap, once it's got a fresh coat of paint, wow, it is making a difference. I don't know if I have any photos from years ago without any of this on here, but I'm halfway across this wall now and starting in on the edging. I've brought up a bunch of trim pieces that we'll use for quarter round on the edge, and here on this lip to fill in that space, and then quarter rounding along the edge on the bottom. I filled my gap here where that electrical work had been done and put a coat of gel stain on it, so it's a lot less noticeable that there was ever anything done there. And once it's all clear coated, it'll be even better. So we weren't liking the way that last trim was looking. It was brick molding, so he took it off and we did, I think it's 1 5/8 crown molding, and just nailed it to the surface of that board. Had we known we were gonna do it that way, we were having trouble running into the space of the ceiling above because the door is a little bit taller. All of these are about 75, 76, and this one was 80. So we cased the door based on the size of the door. But it ended up working out really good because at a glance, when you come in the room, it's much closer than what it was. And we're working on trim molding today. So like right now he's tacking up this molding that we had to fill the gap here on the edge where the rafters meet the sidewalls. And then this is a shoe mold, a very small shoe mold that we had. I was thinking it was quarter round, but it's not quite quarter round. So that's sitting perfectly on the edges of all the shiplap. And I'm going around and priming it.